So far we have seen that this page, this client side is designed, but the data is being fetched from the local fixed file or objects only. Now is the time when we start developing the server side also. Not only that, when we say server side, it means we'll have to begin with the database. We are going to use the MySQL database. So I'll show you the configuration in this section, how we are going to use the MySQL RDBMS. So now I'm showing you the steps how we can configure MySQL. I'm going to download MySQL. So I click on this link. And we are going to download the community edition. So you click on it and here you have list of items which you want to download. So we select our respective link depending on the kind of system you have. You can download any of these, whether it is a web downloader or the offline installer, that is. So I'm going to click on this download. And it is going to download an executable which will eventually install the MySQL. So these are the steps you follow, and eventually, because I already have the MySQL installed, that's why I'm getting this message. So once the MySQL is installed, we are going to move to the next steps. Now let's check whether MySQL is installed or not. So I'm going to the command prompt, and here I will change the folder to program files, MySQL. Now inside this folder, I will run MySQL with username, root and the password. So here the MySQL prompt is displayed. Now this shows that the MySQL is installed. This is a kind of place where I can run the commands, the CLI it is. For example, let's check list of databases on this system. So I'll just say show databases. Let's press enter. And here it shows the databases we have here. So now let's create the database we need for our application. The database name will be eStore. So I'll say create database. The name is eStore. Now let's check whether it is created or not. So you see that the first value eStore, which shows that the database is created. Now comes a time to create tables in it. So first of all, we are going to make that database active. We are going to select the database. So I'll say use eStore. So now eStore is the current database. Now we can create the tables here. Let's say show tables. Now it doesn't show any table at the moment. Now we create the table. So I'll say create table. The table name is categories, which is going to contain the product categories. Now inside this, there will be few fields. First is the ID. I want to keep it integer and there will not be any null value in it. And also I'm setting it as automatically incrementing field. So automatically there will be an incrementing value in it. Let's also add category, which will be a variable character, but up to 50 characters only. And also I am defining a parent category here, which is going to contain the category ID itself, which will allow us to define n level of subcategories. As you go on, you will understand this. And let me also add date timestamp related field. And I'm going to define with a current value of date and time, that is now, which is a function. I want to define ID as a primary key. So I'll say primary key ID. Now let's press enter. And we have the table created. Now let's try show tables to check whether we have the table available or not. So we have the categories table created. Let me now try the select statement to check whether we have any record or not. Then we are going to add the records in it. Alright, let me also remind you that I'm using CLI at the moment, but certainly you can have the enterprise manager for MySQL, which will help you to deal with this entire database and various operations with graphical user interface, and which is easier way, but CLI is fascinating for all developers. That's why I'm using it. Let's proceed to insert a record in the table. So I'm going to say insert into. The table name is categories. I want to insert the values into specific fields. So I'm going to give the column names here only. So the first field I'm going to add is category, because ID anyway is going to be incremented automatically. So this is the only field where I'm going to add the value. For rest of the fields we'll see as we go on. So now I just say values. The first value I want to define, the categories we had earlier in the JavaScript file or array was kids, for example. Then I'm going to add that value here. Let's insert this. So now the record is added. Let's check whether we have the record inserted or not. I'll say select star from categories, and we have the data here. Now you see that the date and time stamp is also added. ID is automatically inserted, which begins with 1, but it will be incrementing. To check, let's insert one more record in this. So instead of kids, now I'm going to add a parent ID also. So parent category ID, let's say in kids we have a subcategory. So I'll say dresses, and the category of this dresses will be 1. That is, the parent category is kids. Together I'm adding one more value here. Let's say jackets. That also falls under kids category. That is the kids parent category. And now you see that the query is executed. Now let's check using the select statement. So now we have 3 records. This is how we add the record from CLI, though we will be having the GUI of our own application to add and remove and all operations. But this is just for an example to understand the basics of MySQL. How do we deal with it? So this is how you create tables in future. As and when required, I'll be guiding you to create tables. The records will be inserted from the interface of client, but right now we are going to configure the server with the Node.js. That's going to be our next section.